peace. The God in me bows before the God in each one of you. I want to thank you for joining us in this series of integrating the sacred. And what we attempt to do, as I always say, is simple and profound. By lovingly and prayerfully contemplating the words of Jesus, the actions of Jesus, and the person of Jesus, we seek to open ourselves up to that great divine light that continues to radiate from him so that we can live an enlightened life, so that we can live a divine life, so that we can help to illuminate the world with God's truth, beauty, and goodness. This is why we gather, and I'm so glad that you are joining us. Thank you very much. Before I jump into today's gospel reading from the 9th chapter of John's Gospel, let me put it in a certain context. These gospel stories are not about people who lived in a primary way. They're not about people who lived 2,000 years ago. They're stories about you and me. They illumine our lives, our challenges. They illumine our path for healing and for growth. They're stories about you and me, individually and collectively, for the human race. The primary person, in addition to Jesus in today's gospel story, is a blind man. And I mean this quite literally. This blind man represents you and me, our own blindness, but also our journey to healing and to wholeness. So let me jump into the story, and I'm going to narrate it. Jesus is walking down a road with his disciples, and they come across a man who was blind from birth. And Jesus' disciples say to him, "Rabbi, was this man born blind because of some sin he committed?" A veiled reference to reincarnation. "Or was he born blind because of some sin that his parents created?" And Jesus said, "No. He was born blind so the glory, the goodness of God, the love of God, the light of God could shine in him and through him." Then Jesus took action. He spit on the ground, mixed his spit with soil, creating this pasty kind of clay. And then he anointed the man's eyes with this clay and then sent him to bathe in a pool that was known for healing. The blind man did that. And he received his sight. All right, so I want to break this story down. It is so rich. The first thing I want to say is, can we dare to believe that everything that happens to us is serving our highest good? Let me say it this way. I think we tend to have a juvenile understanding of reincarnation. And what I mean by that is we tend to see it as a system of rewards and punishments. Again, that's a very juvenile way of seeing karma. Everything that comes to us, everything is meant to serve our highest good. Everything that comes to us is karma, but it's karma that has the hand of God in it. And that hand of God wants to liberate us. This is true individually and it's true collectively. We all have our pains, our wounds, our challenges. Can we dare to see God's hand in them? And collectively, the human race has many wounds. The war in Iran is a huge wound. And of course, we should be very concerned about it. But can we see that God's hand is in it? No, I'm not saying that God is causing the war. But can we dare to believe that God's hand is in that? Again, potentially, all that happens to us can liberate us if we dare to believe that God's hand's in it, and if we dare to believe that God is using it to serve our good. I'm not asking you to believe that based on my word. Try it as a spiritual, scientific experiment. For the next 30 days, choose to live your life in such a way that all the challenges that come to you are here to heal you and to divinize you. Choose to believe that for 30 days and see how it begins to transform your consciousness and see how it begins to transform your life. It's very interesting. Jesus uses something very earthy that we wouldn't think would have the hand of God in it. Spittle to heal this man. Again, I dare you to believe that God is using everything that happens to us to heal us. Now, part of the story is that Jesus becomes the source of this blind man's healing. All right, so let's break that down a little bit. Sigmund Freud said something that was very interesting. He said, all that psychoanalysis can do, it could take us from extraordinary suffering and only bring us to ordinary suffering. What am I trying to say in that? We're not going to heal ourselves. Albert Einstein said, the consciousness that created the problem is never the consciousness to solve the problem. Simply, we need a power greater than ourselves to restore us to sanity. We need that individually and collectively. I believe at one level, what's happening in the world, God is not punishing us, but God is purifying us so that we will recognize that we can't heal ourselves, that our cleverness isn't enough, our willpower isn't enough, our imagination, unaided by the grace of God, is not enough. We need something bigger than ourselves. So this is the second challenge that this reading brings to us. Are we willing to accept that we need a power greater than ourselves? That we really, really need a power greater than ourselves? Recently, somebody said to me, oh, you meditate all the time. You must be a holy person. No, that's not why I meditate. I don't meditate because I'm a holy person. I meditate because I know if I'm going to be a good husband, a good father, a good grandfather, if I'm going to be a good spiritual teacher, I can't do it by my power. I need a higher power. I meditate every day, in part because I love God, and I meditate because I need God. I pray because I need God. We have to come to this if we're going to be healed individually and collectively. And it's a tough reality to come to because it's a blow to the ego. See, that ego part of us wants to believe that it can do everything on its own. It wants to believe that it has the power. It doesn't want to give up its independence. The ego can't heal us. We need a power greater than ourselves. That's what Jesus symbolizes, okay, in this story. The third piece of the story is it's an adventure, right? I think there's an impulse in all of us to want to live an easy life. I don't think we're meant to live easy lives. The Divine Mother sends you and me, she sends her children here, not so that we'll have a life of ease, so that we will open ourselves to the light of God, so that we can live a divine life. That's why she sends us here. And if everything was easy, we would not open ourselves up to that light. We would not be divinized. Our challenges that take us beyond our limits are meant to open us to God's unlimited wisdom and God's unlimited power. Let me say it this way. The man born blind did not receive an instantaneous healing from Jesus. He's blind. He has to embrace the adventure. As a blind man, he has to find this pool. He could stumble and fall. He might stumble. He might have stumbled and fell along the way. He has to do that to get to the pool to experience his healing. Again, what does this mean for you and me? Our challenges are not meant to break us. Our challenges are meant to divinize us. In the spiritual life, we're going to experience moments, again, where we are in over our heads. Those moments are not meant to break us, but to open us to a power that is greater than ourselves, to allow God's light to illumine our darkened will and our darkened imagination. We have to embrace adventure. And it's going to sound a little funny, also to enjoy the adventure. You know, I've said this before. I turned 70 this past December, and I created a 5-year plan for my life, what I want to get done between now and the time I turn 75. And it's good that I did that. It is giving me a path. But I also know it's an adventure. I know God is going to surprise me along the way. I know that I think that I'm going to take this path, and at some point God will say, no, take this path, take this other path. It's all the adventure, and we're meant to actually enjoy the adventure. We're constantly looking to get to the end goal to be happy. And there is an end goal to all of this. It's union with God. But as Catherine of Genoa said, the great Catholic mystic and saint of the Middle Ages, it's heaven all the way to heaven. So embrace the fact that life is not going to be easy, that it's going to be an adventure. It's going to challenge us out of our comfortableness, but it's going to lead us to where we need to go. Choose to embrace the adventure and to enjoy the adventure. We're meant to live adventurous lives as human beings. Now let me bring us to the conclusion of this story and really what it is about ultimately. This man comes back to Jesus, and he does something symbolically that is very important. He bows down and he literally worships Jesus. Now, what does that mean for us? We all worship something, whether we realize it or not. A lot of people worship money. A lot of people worship power. There are a lot of people in our culture that worship prestige and fame. This is the problem. Those very, very limited and often dark things that we worship, they don't bring us happiness. They don't bring us joy. They don't bring us light. They don't bring us healing. We're meant to make God's will, coming through Jesus, coming through the great masters, for example, of the Kriya lineage. We're meant to make God what we worship. See, because this is the truth. We become what we worship. We merge with the content of what we worship. Don't we all know people that worship money and maybe they get a lot of money, but they're still unhappy and they actually become greedy? People who have a degree of power, they merge with that power or the desire for the power, and they become very self-destructive. When we make God, Christ, his gurus, his truth, his beauty, his goodness, what we worship, our lives literally become a divine affair. Let me close by saying it this way, and it's part of this adventure of the spiritual life. We typically make incremental growth, and incremental growth is good, don't misunderstand me. But like this blind man, we're going to hit a moment in our life where God is saying, I want you to gamble everything on love. I want you to make a big, big leap of faith. That will allow me to bless you greatly. See, incremental growth can take us only so far. Periodically, we'll be called to make the great leap. One of the great leaps we all have to make is death. And either we will fight it or we will embrace it as our path to liberation. But there will be great leaps that we have to take in between now and our death. When we make those great leaps, there's a kind of magic that happens. In incremental growth, we take that growth into us, we take God into us and kind of metabolize the wisdom of God into who we are. But in these great leaps, it's the reverse. God takes us, our minds, our bodies, our imagination, and God metabolizes us into himself, into herself. God metabolizes us into the divine life. Then we become God's light in the world. That's how we're meant to live our lives, to go from blindness to vision, to see as God sees, and to live a divine life. God bless you. Again, thank you for being with us. If you like this video, give it a like, make a comment, pass it on to your friends. That helps with the algorithms. Thank you. God bless you. Hope to be with you soon.